This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast Season 9, Episode 11. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined by Jonathan Kuline in Florenceville, Bristol, New Brunswick.
Hello there, kids.
And I'm also joined by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Going well. Now that I've returned to spring as opposed to winter.
Yeah, spring arrived here just after you guys left. It was great.
And then it went back to winter again, right?
No, it was lovely today. We took the dogs out for a walk. It was a balmy 9 degrees Celsius.
Ooh, 9 degrees. Wow.
Yeah, sun was shining. Eagles were soaring. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, eagles. Yes, we saw the eagles. Well, I mean, it was 16 degrees here today, and I rode a bike over to City Hall to get a new parking permit, and it was hot.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. Well, not California hot, but hot.
Jaime, I don't want to alarm you, but there's a pair of bald eagles that have moved into my my area here, and I think it's a little telling that even the bald eagles want to live here.
Yes, that is true. They moved north to get better health care.
One of them landed and said, "Can you please paint my head red with a maple leaf in the middle of it?"
We have established air superiority over the lands of Canada, is what I'm hearing.
Is that what that is? Are these advanced soldiers or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're spies. Spies, American spies.
As long as they don't make off with my dog, I'm good.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we have some fact check from last episode. Jonathan and I were scratching our heads about the order of the original series, the animated series presentation between publication dates and whatever. And I discovered that the artwork from last week's show was taken from a VHS box, which included Bem and the Albatross as a pair released on VHS. So I would think that the order that Paramount is showing them in is the order that they were published on VHS. So anyway, we only got 4 more shows to go, but we're going to skip that this week because we got a lot of stuff to cover. So maybe we'll jump into the headlines. Jonathan's got something up first.
Yeah, we got some good trailers today. So we know that there is an upcoming 1 episode special episode of The Punisher coming to Disney Plus, and today we got our first look at it. And it looks like what you'd expect from a Punisher trailer. It is both emotionally intense looking and physically intense looking. Pretty gutty thing. Frank's beard is in impressive form. And so this is coming out the week after the Daredevil Born Again season ends and about 6 weeks before the debut of the new Spider-Man theatrical movie, Brand New Day, which we've already seen in that trailer that Frank Castle, the Punisher, is going to be in that. So kind of a little bridge from where we are in Daredevil to where we're going in Spider-Man. And but it really, there's a lot of investment. I noticed that it was co-written by John Bernthal, who of course has been playing Punisher for the last 10 years. And there's a lot of investment in this character from him and the people that have worked on that show previously. So it looked pretty intense. What are your impressions about this one, guys?
And yeah, I definitely have to concur. That it's not a laughing situation. It's definitely a very serious kind of show. And even though there are some comedy bits for the way that the Punisher is portrayed in Daredevil, it's kind of more of like a dark comedy. It sort of gives you a little bit of levity and a little bit less Punisher-y in Daredevil. But this Punisher One Last Kill looks very Punisher-y.
Yeah, it looks every bit as intense as the Netflix series did, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I did have a chuckle in the middle of watching it, though, because like it said, coming in May, Frank will lose it, which I think is pretty much the gist of the Punisher show, right?
Yeah. Oh, you mean more so than before he started mowing down criminals all over the city and blowing up buildings? And yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm pretty psyched for it, actually. I've been curious to see, we've obviously gotten the Punisher in the Daredevil series, but really not a lot. We got like 1 episode where he was in it, and he was very similar to what we saw in the Netflix show, which was pretty dark. I'll be curious to see sort of where they will and won't go with this. Although we'll be talking about Daredevil Born Again later in this episode, and that show's not afraid to go to dark places either. So, I do think that this is part of what Marvel wants to do, which is kind of make the shows for the best possible quality and then let people pick and choose what they're ready for. The other trailer we got was thankfully not quite as grim, but intense in its own way. Rick and Morty season 9 is coming up soon on Adult Swim, and we got our first sort of very Rick and Morty trailer. Lots of quick cuts, lots of Rick making quick quips all over the place, and Morty screaming. Again, it looks crazy, it looks nutty, it looks over the top, and kind of everything you want from a Rick and Morty season. Tim, what do you think about this one?
Well, I mean, I didn't really get a whole look at it, but I mean, I looked at it really quickly, but I think it's typical of the kind of thing you expect from Rick and Morty with, breakfast drugs and, various things like, Rick dropping off Morty and, running into his bedroom and grabbing Morty and who's in mid-sleep to come off and have some sort of adventure, sort of thing. Yeah, it looked like a typical Rick and Morty thing. I'm surprised, actually, because I don't know, I guess it's going to be hopefully like The Simpsons will get 30 years of them, right? So,
yeah, I mean,
Rick and Morty forever 100 years is what they've said before, and it's literally a comment in several of these comments on the video.
What do you think, Jaime?
Yeah, I agree with Tim that it looks like it's got a mishmash of similar-ish moments to what we've seen before, and then newer nutty stuff. They find new ways to go through one-off episodes, through story arc episodes, and then meta commentary about itself, which is part of the charm, I think.
Yeah,
it's good. It seems to be. They seem to come up with it doesn't seem to be a lot of waiting between seasons. I'm just trying to check the numbers now. So what season are we in? Oh my god, it's got 12 seasons. How many seasons we got?
What, Rick and Morty?
No, I guess 11. Season 11. No, 11, 10.
It says 9 is the new 9. One.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, because so 2025 was so it was like a year between series, right? So 2023, 2025. So series number 9 is coming up May 24th. It looks like about the same time as The Punisher is coming out, but that's season 9. But they've got 12 seasons marked here in IMDb, so they're planning 4 more seasons.
Yeah, I think when the main cast and Harmon signed a contract extension, I think they signed for a 5-year contract or 6-year contract or something.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows, so it's good.
And also today, we got a confirmation of when we're going to see season 2 of Dark Matter. So this was a kind of out of nowhere, surprisingly good show on Apple TV from, was it last year? I guess it was last year. This is a series about somebody who discovers parallel dimensions and in the series gets stuck in there. It's Joel Edgerton playing that character, and then realizes he wants to figure out how to get back to his original dimension, but he's not alone. There are multiple versions of himself. There are multiple versions of his friends and enemies, and it was pretty good, twisty-turny, kind of occasionally confusing, but really enjoyable series. And now we know we're getting season 2 at the end of August. It's coming August 28th. They didn't put out a trailer yet, but they just put out some stills. So if you click on the link in our show notes, you'll see some stills from season 2, but no actual video yet. And it'll be interesting to see where they decide to go from here, because I'm not going to spoil the ending of the last season, but it could have been a close to a series for sure. And where they decide to take it next will be really kind of interesting to know how they want to carry on these character stories.
Yeah, it's an interesting season. It's still, interesting series. It still kind of throws me off because the Dark Matter name was that Canadian sci-fi show that was on for years, or a couple of years, and then ended with a cliffhanger, and then got canceled. So
yeah,
probably one of the best cliffhanger cancellations I've had to experience, but. Yeah, but this is good. I mean, this is Jennifer Connelly and Joel Edgerton, so it'd be good.
First season has that Star Wars A New Hope kind of ending, which is good for this sort of series of you feel pretty satisfied, but they leave a little crack open that they want to explore if they want to. So season 2 seems to be taking advantage of the aforementioned crack. So I'm excited to see this one. But since folks are always worried, especially in this streaming era, if they somehow poop the bed here, you'll be very satisfied with season 1 if you just went and watched that. So they're playing with house money at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, excited for that one. Speaking of Apple TV, Tim?
Yes, the next story, I put this one up here for you guys, really, because it doesn't mean a lot to me, but just Apple TV's adding Crunchyroll to their channels that are available. And just on a side note here, they added F1, and we just got to see some of what F1 is doing, and it's kind of like ties into the F1 app, into the, here in Canada, to the TS Sports Network app, TSN. So I'm not sure if it's like Major League Baseball with this exclusive content kind of thing, but you can watch like recently the Japanese F1 was on, and you can watch the warm-ups, and you can watch other things, but you had to use either the F1 or TSN app from what I could tell. But anyway, so Crunchyroll's coming. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. I know Jaime's mentioned Crunchyroll in the past. It's an anime network, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It did start out as a less than legal kind of thing, got real popular, and the Japanese anime media company said, okay, let's turn it to a legit thing. And it did become legit. It's free. And then as it grew, it became a paid service. I think there's limited free option, kind of free trial type stuff. You can't watch entire series for free anymore, I think. So for somebody who's cheap like me, going back to the Lopez calculus, I ended up watching a lot of anime through like Hulu or Netflix because I already pay for those.
Yeah, so I assume you have Apple TV. I don't know if you're on.
Yeah,
Apple
I do.
TV, the rest of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this could be fascinating because it mentions the whole like channels experience where you don't have to have multiple logins, multiple billing, and like you just click, and you watch all the media that you want, right? From a variety of different, no pun intended, channels. Amazon has something kind of similar, which will be confusing. My significant other will be like, hey, I thought this show was on Apple TV. I'm like, it is. And don't pay for it there because we're already paying for Apple TV. They have no idea. So don't pay for another subscription to Apple TV.
So when you connect that, when you subscribe to Apple TV through the Amazon app, it shows up. It just works, or what's?
I'm mildly afraid to try it again because I'm already subscribing to Apple TV's service through Apple itself. And I don't know if it's going to be seamless and say, hey, wait a minute, we recognize this email address. And that's if I'm even using the same, I got to check. Am I even using the same email address between my Apple ID and my Amazon username? Probably not.
Yeah, I worked with a guy who worked for a channel that wrote for Apple TV, or wrote for a TV network or service, right? And he explained how Apple TV works with this kind of a way you hook into it. And even though like how the Disney app appears in Apple TV, and Netflix is surprisingly the only one that doesn't appear in Apple TV, because the other ones kind of sink in. Like when I look at my Apple TV shows, my what's up next, I think it's called on Apple TV, you can see what's going on, and it's not perfect because I do notice the Disney ones I have to mark them as watched because it doesn't really sort of sync properly. But I can see, like I just go to the Apple TV app and to the home screen, and I can see what episodes I'm following on Disney or on Prime or whatever are coming up, right? So that may be how it kind of ties in, right? Like I think if you have Apple TV and you like they kind of like merge together, or they kind of are connected, because we see a lot of stacked TV. I think that's one we see here,
yeah.
Jonathan, right?
Yeah.
As an add-on to your cable or whatever, but it's a streaming service that shows that we may or may not want to watch, right? Like it's weird because here in Canada we still get a lot of shows that are exclusive to Peacock, for example. I've discovered recently I can watch them on Global TV with ads, right? So I can watch them in the Global TV app. I'm trying to remember what show there was. Oh, it was the newspaper app with the Irish actor who played Admiral Hawk from the new Star Wars stuff. Redhead guy.
I do. I'm just trying to. I'm fishing for his name. Yeah,
Donald, something like that.
Oh
General
yeah,
Hux,
that's right.
But I don't know his real name.
Yeah, he's Gleason's son, right? He's Donald Gleason's son.
Donald Gleason. Yeah, but he's Donald Gleason's son. Okay, but anyway, Yeah, that show is advertised as on Peacock, which we don't get here, but it is available on Global TV, for example. So it's all weird. Who can keep up? Speaking of who can keep up, as we know, the Artemis mission, I think tomorrow is, as we record today on Thursday, tomorrow is the day they splash down after having gone and caught the moon and then orbit or slingshot around the moon, and they're on their way home. But apparently a friend of mine, Peter Cook, sent over this link that from Mac Daily News that the launch was filmed with the Blackmagic Ursa cameras, which are the stereoscopic immersive cameras that they're using to film sporting events and things like that. So we'll be able to watch the launch of the Artemis 2 in immersive video. But when we're going to see that, I don't know. The article is a week old, but doesn't say when exactly. But yeah, so we don't know when that's coming out. But stay tuned. And generally speaking, Apple does, because these things take a while to sort of process and maybe edit and do the post-production on them. It may be coming to an Apple TV Vision Pro device soon. So that's all I gotta say. And this next one I saw, which ties into what we're going to be talking about as well in the show, and a show that both of you guys really like a lot, is that there's an Invincible game coming. It's currently in beta. So you can try it out. You can play like a level. This is from IGN Network or IGN.com. But the clips I saw of it, it's got the same, explosive punching, blood splattering that you've come to love and expect in Invincible. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the link.
No, I didn't know. I've seen ads for an Invincible game, but I thought it was like a mobile game. So this must be something else. Yeah.
Well, I think it's coming to something services or whatever. I don't know what it says in the article, but I think it's playable until April 30th, I believe. Yeah, so it's coming to PS5, Xbox, PC, game launching April 30th. But yeah, you can play. Oh, so today's April. Yeah, so it'll be on open beta from April 9th to April 11th. So and the 9th is today. Whether this gets out by Saturday, which is the 11th, is a good guess. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the developer publisher, but it does seem, so this is an audio medium. If you've ever seen the Injustice, with Superman, Batman, DC kind of fighting game style, kind of Mortal Kombat-ish, with a look and feel that feels like the more modern Dragon Ball Z fighting games. People can fly around, zip around, do cool stuff. Kind of has that vibe to it. I don't know if it's the same developer for either of those games, but I wouldn't be surprised. Notably not on Mac, so I'm going to have to hope, since I'm a GeForce Now streaming gaming subscriber, I'm going to hope that it eventually comes to GeForce Now.
I think we're going over to Jaime now because my Mac has decided not to show my Google Doc notes to me anymore, so I have
it is Jaime's turn.
Yeah, so this next one here is that Tubi, the free television streaming service, has a native app within ChatGPT. So for folks who don't know, you can add little apps inside of ChatGPT. The other LLM providers, Google's Gemini and Anthropic's Claude, have very similar kind of concepts. ChatGPT calls them apps. And in this case, you might be wondering, what's the point of this? Is like, well, if you've ever doom scrolled or just really struggled to figure out what was the name of that show, the one with the guy and then he's with the girl, you could ask Tubi, hey, and they have examples right here from the link in the show notes for you transporting it home. Natural language requests like, quote, a thriller for girls' night or something funny. So the kinds of things that you could ask an LLM to do to sort of help you figure out, like, if you're like us and you're like watching the schedule and like, oh, we know exactly when The Boys is coming out. We know exactly when the Maul series is coming out. Okay, maybe that's not for you. But if you are somebody who struggles to figure out what am I going to watch today, or if you have a significant other where you struggle to get past the doom scrolling and actually pick something, maybe this will be for you.
And have you tried this for us?
I have not. I just saw the article, but it's something that might be kind of interesting to see. Although Tubi doesn't have, maybe they have some originals for all I know, or exclusives, but Tubi doesn't have like first run stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
That might be a bit of a challenge, but it is free from what I recall.
Yep, I think you can
Pluto
either
and
use it
Crackle
for
and
free, or you can sign up if you want to have it remember where you left off on stuff.
Yeah. I'm 90% sure that I rewatched at one point the entire Transformers Beast Wars 3D animated series on Tubi, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched some movies that you generally don't see. What did I watch? Something very strange recently. But generally shows that you don't, or movies that you don't really see on normal channels, right? Cool. Well, this brings us to the main part of the show where we usually talk about something Star Trek related, but this week we got a ton of non-Star Trek related stuff to talk about. So we'll dive back into Daredevil Born Again. I think we discussed it last week, right? Or last time we were on the show. So let's dig into, we'll talk about the latest three episodes, one of which just went by a couple of days ago. So Shoot the Moon, episode 2, The Scales on the Sword, episode 3, and Gloves Off was the latest episode that we just saw. So how about you? How do you want to tackle it?
I don't know. I guess just overall impressions of the episodes, or I could do the 5-second recap.
Sure, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah, so episode 2 and 3 dropped the same week, and they kind of all start with this effort to protect the former detective Cherry, who is working for Matt now. After he has his heart attack, there's this the goon squad that Kingpin's got going on in New York City is chasing him, right? And then it just keeps getting worse and worse. They're continuing to round people up, and one of the people that gets rounded up is the former, I guess, the widow of the White Tiger who we met in the first season, and she ends up getting dragged away, right? And then we end up with her niece, who is the one who ends up basically getting her getting the amulet and trying to do something about this. So we get a sort of a new superpowered character. And then the episode, that one ends with a bunch of people are going to attack Josie's bar, and then Karen takes them all out, right? And then
you mean rescue them, right?
Yeah. And then we end up in the next episode with the one hostage that she takes, right? The one hostage, they're interrogating him, and the guy says, "Oh, actually, I wanted to give you the information." And he gives them basically the lowdown on how to get into that Freeport and go down there. They end up going down there, and they end up realizing that it's way bigger than they thought. They've got all these prisoners there that were being held illegally, and including the swordsman. And they have a big, huge, drawn-out fight there to free all those people. And as part of that, the Goon Squad and Fisk basically decide to blow up the remainder of the ship in the harbor, the Northern Star, right? And kill all the people who are on board, the salvage crew. The guys were like, "We just want to go home." And they're like, "No, you get back on the ship." Like, that wasn't foreshadowing at all.
Yeah, they got the weapons off, and then they order them to go back on the ship. And then they sink the ship.
Yeah. And then this week's episode was basically them going around trying to find that. They're blaming the ship sinking on Daredevil and his cronies, and Fisk basically is getting ready to have this big fight. We get this really crazy scene at the beginning with Bullseye basically massacring cops in the diner. That was pretty intense. And then Daredevil ends up tracking him down. They have a big fight. This one was very good. I thought this week's episode, Gloves Off, was a real banger. So it's basically, there's these parallel events that are all kind of coming together, where Daredevil's trying to track down Bullseye to stop him from making things worse, because Bullseye thinks he's quote unquote helping Matt, right? And then there's this whole storyline of Kingpin is going to fight this boxer who I guess has never boxed before, because the first thing he does is like leave his jaw exposed for Kingpin to punch him in the face. That was my only takeaway from that, was like, no, They said he's 32-2 lifetime. I'm like, nobody who's been in the ring 35 times keeps their guard that low when a guy who's bigger than them is coming at them with his fist raised. Like, that was a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, like the fighting that Kingpin puts in. Like, he's just outrageous. Like, he's just, I mean, you're supposed to get the impression he's so, brutal that he's not really following the rules of boxing, I guess.
He kind of is, because he's not, like, the guy won't go down, and nothing he's doing is illegal.
No, what I'm getting at is that, like, this guy, when they talk about the guy at the very beginning, the announcer is calling out their weights and whatever, Kingpin's clearly 100 pounds heavier. Right. Is that, would they do that in boxing?
No,
I don't think so.
Not in normal sanctioned boxing. No, you'd have weight classes.
So he's clearly got like a lot more, and he's just brutal. But yeah, it's funny that. But the thing about it, the whole gist of the fight, as Kingpin says at one point in the story, is that he's trying to draw Karen and the Daredevil
and theoretically Bullseye too, right?
He's figured. Yeah, to get them to come, he's putting on this event to have them come and show up, but
then he's done that, and he's also told his wife Vanessa to stay away, right? Because he doesn't want her being there.
Yeah, and he's very adamant.
And she shows up, and she's all proud of herself because she's the brains behind the organization. She's the one who kind of got the governor on board, and she thinks she's a hot pile of poop, and basically comes in there, and then of course all hell breaks loose when Bullseye shows up, Matt shows up, Karen shows up, guns are blazing.
But in the meantime, the B story is that the first mate of the ship shows up and wants to testify, so they go and get Matt's partner to receive his testimony on video to show that he was ordered by Fisk or by the Kingpin, he says, to sink the ship if anybody shows up, right? And then they sort of said, well, who showed up? He says Daredevil, and then so it wasn't Daredevil to prove that Daredevil didn't do it, right? And then of course the second in command guy, the British dude, I've forgotten his name,
Buck Cashman. That's the best comic book name I've ever heard in my life, Buck Cashman.
Yeah, he goes and takes care of the marshals going as soon as the marshals showed up to pick him up in their black van or whatever. I thought either they're in on it or they're going to do something stupid and he's going to get killed, right? Because it was so clear that what was going to happen, right? Because nobody goes with him. Like Matt doesn't say, "I'll follow in the truck behind," and just to make sure. Right, so they kill the only witness that has come forward, right? And then because the Kingpin says, or Fisk says to his wife, several times in the episode, I could have written that you should stay away, you should stay away, you should stay away, and then as he's about to be killed by Bullseye, she pulls a gun out of her purse and shoots him, right? And then, can we talk about the little sculpture with the fact that it said New York Born Again on it, with the crystal sculpture of Fisk?
Yeah, as soon as the deputy mayor sits down there with like all this stuff, including this like jagged looking glass sculpture, I was like, well, there's the murder weapon.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to come into. I didn't know that it was going to explode when all that. But I was like, somebody's not going to die at the hands of that sculpture.
Yeah, and it's like one of these. Again, it's the trope where there's kind of a Mexican standoff kind of thing where she shoots Bullseye as he throws the knife at Fisk, because he throws, or Bullseye, I guess, throws the sculpture at Fisk, who then fires at his gun at it, and we get the spoiler. We get he dispatch everybody. The dust clears, and then it turns out that Fisk's wife is not in such good health, right?
Well, no, she's pretty dead by the end of this. She's got a big jagged piece of glass jabbed into her head.
And it's funny because the governor says, I can't get behind your husband. I could get behind your husband and his wife, meaning, who she's negotiating with. But that, so obviously we have to clear the table and get her out of the way, because now Fisk is going to just, be off his rocker, right?
Yeah. Yep, as angry as he was in
because
this...
the wife Vanessa, is the only thing that's keeping him calm, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is she was keeping him in check, because you even see that in this episode where he's like all tensed up and she's like, no, I got this, calm down. And you see the effect that she has on him. And yeah, without those guardrails up, that's where he'll get sloppy and it starts to fall apart, right? What jumped out at you for these episodes? What were the most memorable bits?
I really like, you've got BB, the young lady that does the, most of the show, she's done the like person on the street report type stuff of how New Yorkers are, over the moon of like crime is down. Yeah, maybe they're a little rough, but it seems like things are generally okay. And then you contrast that with the feels very much like Mr. Robot, F Society style, kingpin mask and just satire, just takedown of all of Fisk's policies and the things that he's doing. I thought those were really well done. I thought those are pretty effective.
Yeah, I thought the Daredevil versus Bullseye fights, we had multiples over the past couple episodes, and they were all really, really, like, the choreography of the fights. I think the high bar for fight choreography for me is still, I think it's like the third episode of the first season of the Netflix series of this, where he does the hallway fight, where he's coming through the doors and he keeps disappearing and then coming back out and fighting in the hallways, and then another guy comes out and then they go fight off to the side and then they come back to the hallway. That was an extraordinarily well choreographed fight scene. And these ones, they're so fast paced, and yet I don't feel like they're overwhelming, which is a really amazing sort of balancing act, because, they're throwing things at each other, they're jumping, they're dodging, and they're doing stuff, but I never felt like, I can't keep track of what's happening, which is really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is the episode where they have the fight in Bullseye's apartment, and he grabs his landlady, right?
Yeah.
Or his neighbor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who's there to defend him, apparently. Oh, yeah. Such a nice young man.
Such a nice boy. Yeah, I find it a bit, it's kind of weird the way that, you're supposed to, it's obviously suspend disbelief that Matt is blind and therefore Daredevil is blind, and yet he's able to go and sniff out, traces of where, like, he goes back to the restaurant where Bullseye has the cleaning, takes on all the cops and, picks up a coin that's underneath something else, and he's able to, and he even hears the "such a nice boy" in his head kind of thing, right? So I'm trying to remember the part where the two of them go through the glass window. Was that the second fight in this episode? No, that was the fight in this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, like the last one just before the what do you call it? What do you call it when the two opposing forces are faced off against each other?
Oh, the unstoppable force versus the immovable object?
No, I mean, like, like the showdown.
Showdown, yeah.
Showdown between Bullseye and Fisk, and where the wife is in the ring, and she shows up in a white dress, right? And, the blood's been spilt already because of the way that Fisk has been, hammering on this other guy. I'm like, there's no way she's walking out of there with a clean dress.
No. Right? No, it was a bold statement. Probably in retrospect, red would have been a better color.
Well, mind you, they both, the two of them tend to wear, or in public they tend to wear white, right? So, although she's been wearing red in most of the shows, right?
Yeah. I will say, I wasn't sure what to expect. I think we kind of all agreed that the first season of the show was a little uneven, and we know that there was some sort of behind the scenes. They kind of filmed some stuff, and they had to take a break, and then they came back and they rewrote some stuff. And so I found last season had some good moments, but a lot of like, this is a bit of a mess. This has been quite enjoyable. I think through 4 episodes feels much more like better paced, more, definitely much easier to follow, and just has a lot more of that kind of electric tension that the Netflix series had that I really enjoyed. I'm pretty excited to see what the next 4 episodes bring us. I mean, they've already teased in the trailers that at some point we're going to see Jessica Jones coming back. What's it going to look like now that Vanessa's gone? Is Fisk going to go scorched earth? Looking for Bullseye, looking for Daredevil, like just absolutely going ballistic on the city, and that's why they have to call in Jessica and/or the Punisher and/or some of the other characters from the Netflix's universe or something. I think this could get pretty big pretty fast.
Well, let's move on to Invincible.
Yeah.
Which season are we in? 5, 4?
This is season 4. So season 4, episode 5 and 6.
So give us a moment and you look horrible.
Yeah. Give us a moment is an interesting one because it kind of seems like it's going to be, a little bit like it starts out really very emotional, and Nolan is there and he's trying to recruit Mark to join the cause to go fight the Viltrumites, and then there's that very intense scene. Again, for a cartoon series, the scene between Nolan and Debbie was like a gut wrencher. Like, that was intense. I mean, terrific vocal performances from both actors on that front. We get to see Tech Jacket, who is a comic character that's been around for years in the Kirkman universe, who joins the cause as well. And and so basically they all sort of head off, and it's sort of, again, the first half of the episode was kind of slow paced, and then it just goes off. The second fight, round 2 between Mark and Conquest, it was one of the most knockdown, drag out, bloody, just extreme, intense fights I've seen in a while. And the part where Mark is trying to basically choke Conquest to death, and Conquest is pulling his viscera out of his chest, was very over the top and extremely dark. That was something else.
Yeah, I think I'm not the originator of this, but I wish I had a link to people on the interwebs. I think this was on the Invincible Reddit, where Mark fighting Conquest, whether it's in this season here or in the prior season, people appreciated how Mark's anger made him stronger, but not in a like Dragon Ball Z, I have over 9,000 power units now I'm just points level better than you. He just becomes more unhinged, and crazy animalistic fighting and the adrenaline that goes with it makes you dangerous. The previous season, Mark was like getting beat up and then just started bashing with his head and biting and everything. And this is when he does the same thing, right? He's like outwills Conquest by like, yeah, you're tearing out my guts, but I'm just going to choke you and let's see who dies first. Yeah. Not really strategy, not really I learned a secret move that my master taught me, or the power of love. Is like, nope, just pure animal viciousness, savagery was pretty fascinating to see.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think the fact that the whole thing, I mean, it's obviously from the end of last season when Mark does, quote unquote, kill Conquest the first time, or at least thinks he does, and, has to go find that level to himself. And there's this sort of hint of it. Obviously, we saw the episode earlier in the season with the Sequids, where like he basically has to make the call, like, do I kill this guy now, kill an innocent person to save potentially, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people from suffering down the road? And there's sort of this, they've had him like riding this edge of like, where is his line on what he's willing to do all season, and then culminating with this crazy intense battle, right?
Yeah. It was the first half of this season was where he had the big fight with Conquest, right?
And then we follow that up with You Look Horrible, which is, again, it's an interesting episode because it deals with the ramifications of what happened. And one of the things I really have always enjoyed about Robert Kirkman's writing, and this was true in the comic books and has carried over into the animated series, is that he's not afraid to take time. The story of Mark in Invincible and everything that's happening with him happens in a sequence of real time. A lot of comic books will kind of gloss over the fact like, hey, hasn't Peter Parker been in high school for like 17 years? And, just some stuff that kind of strains credulity. The whole story of Invincible, it starts at the beginning when he's a high school student, and it carries him into his 30s. Like, so in this circumstance, he has his guts ripped out, and his dad and his brother basically have to keep vigil on him and try and keep him fed and try and keep him healing. But it takes months and months and months of him basically just lying there in a coma. So that's, I appreciate that it's not just like, well, we just stuck all his guts back in and he's ready to get back into the fight. That like there's consequences to these things, right?
Yeah. And long-term cool callbacks like, hey, we found Battle Beast. He was floating in space, and he continues his, he's basically. I mean, yes, it's the person. He is voice acted by Michael Dorn, so the Worf analogy, but it's like Worf on steroids, just constant view for battle and mad at Alan of like, you promised me more fights, and Alan's like, how about war? Is that more fights? That's good, right? That's what you want to do. It's just
that being said,
turn you around and point you in the direction of the Viltrumites, and you do what you do.
He's been raring for like the best fight. Like he doesn't want to just fight. He wants to fight like people who are worthy of fighting him. But then in this episode, you see him at one point and he's fighting, but he's fighting like the troops, right? He's not fighting Viltrumites. He's fighting like just the conquered people that are fighting with them. And I thought it seemed out of character. I was expecting to be like, get out of my way. I want to fight the big guys, Like it just felt like that wasn't his reason for being. He really wanted to fight worthy opponents. I don't think he would have thought any of those like grunts with laser blasters were really worthy opponents.
Yeah, they do towards the end of the episode. The Viltrumites give us the perspective of, hey, we're losing here because they're teaming up on unmatched situations or overmatched situations with individual Viltrumites. So they do a tactical retreat, right? But for the entire episode, I was screaming as a person who, plays role-playing games or strategy games of like, you have to focus fire, right? You have 3 Viltrumites, you have 5 of you guys. Try to get the strongest one, entertained, and then focus fire on the weakest one to turn 3 down to 2. And then focus fire on number 2 until you have only the most powerful one left, and then you gang up on them. Like I was glad to see that they actually did end up doing that at some point, because otherwise I was like, okay, sure, you can let Battle Beast, like I said, just point him like a rocket and just hope he goes in the right direction. But you could also tell him, hey, why don't we go here? You take that one and you stay entertained with that one, and then the rest of us will double team this one over here and take him out. Just like, I don't remember his name and call him Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime kicked a lot of butt this episode, which is nice.
Well, some people call him the Betrayer, but he calls himself Thaddeus.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Thaddeus, Optimus Prime went out there and rolled out.
Peter Cullen did it, yeah. And this, again, like, interesting to see the payoff, right? So 2 episodes ago, and it was an episode, I guess, 3, where they're like trying to gather up all of the different people from all over the place who've got these different powers, and we see that like pay off, right? So we get like the guy with the magic laser gun is like shooting Viltrumites in half. We see them manufacturing all these drugs. We see like all of the sort of actions, but yeah, I mean it was pretty knockdown, drag out, and again the attack on the center of the alliance, basically the coalition, right, is pretty hardcore, and now we've sort of teed it up for like, now we're going to chase them down and try and do something, and we've only got 2 episodes left to go in this season. There's only 2 weeks left, and it'll be interesting to see where they decide to leave us at the end of this one, leaning into to the next season. I'm really curious too. I've been meaning to sit down with the books and just sort of map out. This series is a huge hit, and I'll tell you, I'm on a message board for people who collect Invincible comics and art and ephemera, and the values are insane for those books because they were all relatively low print runs. Like it was this Image Comics, basically they printed to demand. So most of those books they printed 10, sometimes as low as 8,000, sometimes 10,000. When it was kind of in its heyday, they probably got up into the teens. But there aren't a lot of copies out there, and people are paying insane insane amounts of money for key first appearances. The first appearance of obviously Mark, and if the first appearance of Battle Beast is worth a fortune now. Like the different characters that people glom onto. First appearance of Oliver. Like it's crazy the sort of collectible market that has sprung up around this franchise. But what I was wondering is, here we are coming to the end of season 4, and I'm wondering how long Amazon wants this to run for, because they've still got a fair ways to go in the comic run. Like it's probably about halfway now, almost. So I think they're in for like 8, maybe 9 seasons, which is kind of like both exciting because obviously it's an animated property. They can keep it going without, hopefully too much trouble, but also like, yeah, it's not often you get to see a series where you're like, they're going to do the whole thing and they're going to take their time to do it too.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said earlier about the fact that Kirkman takes time to write the story, and that, the recovery of Mark gives Oliver and Nolan a chance to sort of connect and pave the way. I mean, like, it turns out that Oliver heard the conversation that his parents, or his stepmother and his father had, and how Nolan had said to Debbie that the other woman meant nothing to me, which of course is Oliver's mum, and how they kind of have to learn to connect while it takes months for Invincible to recover, right? For Glenn no, not Glenn,
Oliver,
yeah, Glenn, right? No, what's his name? Mark. Glenn from Walking Dead.
Yes, Glenn
yes, that's right. He was Glenn. That's
Stephen
right.
Wen, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen Yeun. It takes months for him to recover. Meanwhile, Nolan and Oliver are having this sort of relationship. Meanwhile, and also we flash back and forth with Alan the alien and all those other people you mentioned earlier having their fights, right? But and by the time they come back to or Mark wakes up, he's got a beard.
Yeah,
and in fact, Oliver started growing pubic hair too, right? So that's how long it takes for the recovery, right?
Yeah. And he's a better fighter, right? Like he was convinced, oh yeah, I know how to fight to help fight Conquest. And Nolan showed him, like, you don't know nothing. Right? Yeah. I'm going to train you. You try to hit me, see what you can do. And just, he got better and better at it. So it shows some growth there.
The first time he gets a bloody nose, Nolan kind of like looks at him and smiles and gives him a, pat on the back kind of thing.
Yeah.
Thanks for hitting me hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, again,
I have to wonder how hard. I mean, I'm not really a fighter, but I have to wonder how hard do you have to get hit for your nose to bleed?
It depends where you get hit. You get hit in the nose, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
As somebody who may have broken his nose on too many occasions, it doesn't take much.
It scales. If you remember in the first season, Cecil is like using that big laser beam from space to hit Omni-Man. And all it does is give him a nosebleed, and it costs like $1 billion or something like that, like whatever it was that he said taxpayer money. So that's the scale we're talking about of like what it takes to give Nolan a nosebleed.
Overall, I just want to say the voice acting, I mean, obviously they have spared no time or expense on getting crazy good voice actors to be on the show. As you just mentioned, Jaime, they got Peter Cullen, who is like the god of voice acting, to come back, and the guy who did Optimus Prime to come back and do this voice of Thaddeus. But I mean, Stephen Wen and Sandra Oh as his mom Debbie, J.K. Simmons as his dad, Gillian Jacobs, Walt Goggins, Seth Rogen, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, it's insane how many talented people they brought on. Now they've brought in, we just had Jonathan Banks was Brit, the guy who was leading the Guardians of the Globe at one point, like the guy from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, like crazy. Bruce Campbell was a guest star 2 episodes ago at playing Satan. It's just incredible. It's just incredible the amount of people that they brought on board. And as you say, Michael Dorn, obviously the legend himself. Lee Pace is there now as Grand Regent Thrag. Like, it's just unbelievable, the voice cast. But they're all really good actors, and they're blending a level of pathos to a cartoon series that is way above the average. Yeah, great stuff. I like this series. I'm so excited that more people are experiencing it, because I've been a fan of the comic for 20 years, and I'm so happy other people are getting into it now.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Now, back to the show.
Well, let's talk about something. Let's talk about Star Wars, Maul, Shadow Lord.
Yeah.
We got 2 episodes out of this season. 2 that dropped, I think, at the same time, right?
Yep, we got 2 episodes. We're going to get 2 episodes each week. So the series is 10 episodes long, 10 episodes for the season, but they're doing 2 a week, so it only runs for 5 weeks. And they've already confirmed that they are making a season 2. So this is not the last we will see of this. So I'm curious as to whether, like, well, basic TLDR is Maul post Rise of the Empire. Maul shows back up and wants to rebuild his criminal empire that he held before, and starts targeting people who were picking up the pieces of his empire and calling it their own. And meanwhile, there's a couple of Force-powered people who he's got his eye on. I don't want to say anything for it. I really want to know what you 2 thought of this series. I really want to know what you thought of the first 2 episodes.
I've only seen part of the necessary stuff, so I've not seen the finale stuff around the Clone Wars. I have seen Rebels, so I know some of where Maul was going. Of course, we watched Star Wars Solo, and we saw, the first hint there of Maul being, shadowy underlord, crime lord kind of guy. So I kind of have like the gist there. But if I was supposed to know, the Twi'lek and the Twi'lek girl and the frog dude or lizard
Yep.
dude that was her master. If we're supposed to know them, I didn't know them, but it kind of doesn't matter. I can kind of tell these are probably going to be the ones that get involved with Maul, right? Just given their prominence.
Yeah, I think the first episode for me was just set up a lot of stuff, but it's the same voice actor from the Clone Wars and stuff like that.
Sam
right?
Witwer's back doing the same voice.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. Some of the voice actor choices, like the Inspector cop guy. Trying to remember his name now. He
Lawson, I think, is called Lawson.
Yeah, that's the actor who was in that drug movie drug TV show that was on Apple TV, and he was one of the guys nominated for Best Actor this year.
Yeah, he's Brazilian, right?
Yeah, it was for that show. It's called Secret Agent, I think.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, so that's a voice, and there's some interesting. Like, I was trying to figure out who the characters were, and that sort of they tie in with the Mandalorians and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah, the first episode kind of wasn't really paying a lot of attention to it, but the second one was a little bit more in depth, and we discover in the second episode that the young lady with I don't know what they call the women that have the flesh hair people.
Twi'lek
is a Jedi. Twi'lek, is that what she is?
Twi'lek,
yeah, she's the same as Hera, right? Yeah, she's a Jedi. It turns out, we find out, and obviously Maul's interested in her because of her talents in that sense, right? Because this is the Star Wars Empire where the Jedis are still sort of hiding, right? Like the
so this
stuff,
this is
right?
basically in the dark zone between the end of Rebels and the beginning of or I guess Rogue One, right? Or Andor.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so we're
So this is after Order 66,
it
though, isn't
is,
it?
yeah. So the last Jedi that exist are basically hiding.
I forget that 66 was the pre New Hope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
See what you've done to me, George? Messed up my timeline. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it was a good episode in terms of like sort of figuring that stuff out. I'm trying to think. Yeah, and the second story was sort of the B plot, I guess, was the cop sort of investigating, the breakout and the kidnapping of the Jedi and Jedi woman, and he's trying to sort of figure out who these people are. I guess he hasn't figured out that it's Darth Maul per se, right?
Yeah.
Or Maul. He's not Darth Maul anymore. He's just Maul, right?
Well, and I think it was really interesting in the second episode when he sees when the cop Lawson sees the video footage, and he doesn't say lightsaber, he says laser sword. And, this is somebody who would have been on the job. So theoretically, he would be aware of Jedi and maybe aware that there was, people who also had laser swords who were fighting against the Jedi. But at this point, the Jedi are gone. And so a laser sword is a novelty. It's not something you'd see every day. So when he sees Maul pull out his, famous double-sided lightsaber, it's a real oh, that's a big clue because those are not common, right? Everybody's got a blaster, nobody's got a laser sword.
Well, as Han Solo says, an archaic weapon, right?
Yeah. And as Obi-Wan says, it's a more elegant weapon for a more elegant time, right?
Right, yeah.
The other two voices that I wanted to flag, so Richard Ayoade from IT Crowd was...
That's 2 feet or something?
Two boots.
Two boots.
2BOT. 2 boots. I was excited to hear his voice come through, and excited that and then I was like, oh, they're not going to kill him off immediately, are they? I was like, oh no, he made it through 2 episodes. That's good. And Dennis Haysbert, who probably most well known for 24, but also it's just one of those character actors been around for decades, was the voice of the Master, who is written down as Iko Diodaki. Not that that's ever come up. They haven't actually referred to him by a name. They just she just calls him Master. So we're supposed to assume that she was a Padawan and he was a Master. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. So yeah, I mean, I really dug these first 2 episodes, but I'm really invested in the sort of animated side of the Star Wars stuff. Clone Wars and Rebels and Bad Batch and all that are really, I think I've enjoyed those as much or more than anything else that's happened in Star Wars. And so I was really excited for this series and to sort of see, I know this was one that Dave Filoni was really keen to do. And I know that he mined some of the material that George Lucas had written for his potential sequel trilogy when he was thinking about doing 7, 8, and 9. He wanted Maul to be the bad guy for that. And he wanted Maul to basically build, allies and sort of an empire that was worthy, or an organization that was worthy of fighting back against the rebels or the alliance, as it were. So it's interesting to see some of these things come to light. And, again, if you've watched all those things, it's no surprise when we see, the Pike Syndicate show up and we see, the different, species that are, fighting. Even the character that's fighting with him is he has a Mandalorian woman who's fighting with him. That's
Rook Nost. Yeah,
that's Rook Kost. Yeah, Rook Kost was one of the characters from Clone Wars that he had on his side. So that's from when the Mandalorians were allied with him, and they when he was basically ruling Mandalore, right? So yeah, it's interesting how they're sort of tying some of these things together, but also kind of trying to create something new. And I really thought, I as a hardcore nerd on this stuff, loved it. I'm really curious to know, for somebody who was just kind of dipping in and being like, oh, I remember that guy from episode 1. What's up with him? If they'd be like, I have no clue what's happening. This feels like very much like the snake eating its tail. This is like what happens when Dave Filoni does not have anybody to answer to anymore. And it's just like, we're doing deep lore cuts now. Let's go. Because it felt like we were right in the weeds.
Yeah, it was interesting. I do like this sort of not the Skywalker saga, right? Sort of stories, right? And again, interesting that in this episode, you sort of see the people walking around with the umbrellas and at night, and it's very much like the landscape still looks like it's created by the Blade Runner look, right? And Walter Wagner Mora is the actor we were talking about, who plays Brander Lawson, the cop who's trying to sort of all this stuff out, right?
Yep.
He's the guy that was the secret agent. Yeah, I mean, it's really entertaining. I mean, I like the, I kind of sort of went through the Clone Wars and Rebels series just to sort of catch up to what we were going to be seeing in the shows that were coming out on Disney. But so it's helpful to have gone through that to get to this point here, because people would have thought, well, didn't Maul die in Phantom Menace kind of thing, and they wouldn't know he's back, right? And and it's good to, like I said, it's good to hear the same voice because and he's sort of, I don't know, he's not like a Darth Vader who's just like supposedly like is supposed to be pure evil, even though we find that he has a redemption arc in Jedi, right? But I mean, that Maul is, not just, and he mentions at one point, he wants to have, in this episode, he says he wants to have revenge on, and if he mentioned something like was it Palpatine? Not Palpatine.
Yeah,
Sidious.
he does. He wants to basically build an empire that is going to stick it to Palpatine because Palpatine.
But Palpatine's other name. What's his?
Darth Sidious.
What's Palpatine's other name?
Darth Sidious.
Darth Sidious. Yeah, he mentions Darth Sidious.
Yeah. I think at this point he's got a long list of grievances. And he feels slighted by Palpatine. He feels slighted by all these other, crime bosses that thought they could basically, take all the riches from his pockets, and So yeah, I mean, it's basically a revenge story at this point. What will be interesting to see is where it goes from here, because if this is going to be 10 episodes or 20 episodes if they do 2 seasons that are basically just, Maul airing of grievances, that's not going to be very fun. So bringing in this new character who he's got his eye on, trying to sort of corrupt her or bring her over as an ally or actually over to the dark side to be his apprentice or something would be really cool. And obviously there'll be that sort of not unlike the what was that series from last year, the Acolyte, the idea that there's basically like somebody on the light side pulling one way, somebody on the dark side pulling the other way, and
the Acolyte, A New Hope.
Like there's a similar vibe, doesn't it? Like a little bit of like the you've got talent, I could use somebody like you, right? And where does that person fall? I think Acolyte was.
Well, Maul also does that. Who's the hero of Rebels? The young character.
He keeps talking to Ezra, right? He keeps calling Ezra his apprentice, right?
Mm-hmm.
He takes an interest in him that way too. Yeah, no, I think honestly, I hope someone at some point down the road does like the Maul cut of all the cartoons, and basically because we're dipping into him all over these different time periods. I feel like at some point somebody's got to do like the Maul cut and put all together all his story, because it's pretty fascinating and pretty compelling. Like, and he's a real cool character. Again, I think I remember you and I saw the first shot of Phantom Menace and we're like, oh, what an amazing character. Oh my God. And then they show you the Duel of the Fates and you're like, this is incredible. This all these acrobatics and the double-sided lightsaber and the whole thing. And then they kill him and you're like, wait, what? And like, they didn't kill Darth Vader. Why did they kill this guy? He's awesome.
Yeah, same with Qui-Gon when they killed him.
Yeah, like
you're like, what?
And so it's amazing that they've found such a brilliant way, and especially considering like we've seen him really die now too. Like he does die in Rebels. Spoilers out there, kids, for a show that's been off the air for like 6 years, but yeah, like we see his ultimate fate. We know where he meets his final end, and yet I still find this character very compelling and just supremely cool. Like he just no matter what he does with that double-ended lightsaber, and just so powerful and confident in the Force. I just think he's just one of the best characters in Star Wars. Do you want to do a little quick little recap for the boys, Jaime?
I think I'm going to defer to you because you've been doing pretty solid on these recaps, and then I can sort of
good to know.
my thoughts.
I got praise from Jaime. That's what matters. So this basically picks up a year later after the events of The Boys season 4, where Homelander's pretty much consolidated all of his control over the government. There is a president, for what that's worth. The guy makes some cocktails. And weirder than that, we also see Ashley is now the vice president, and there's this sort of cool mission to start where Starlighter and some of her associates break in and interrupt this broadcast, and they show the footage that they've been holding on to all this time of the Flight 37, right, where Homelander basically leaves all these people to die, and they think it's going to be a huge blow, but of course, oh no, it's fake, it's AI, it's they don't know what they're talking about. And we very quickly get move forward into this world under Homelander's rule, which seems just a scotch familiar, where, truth is subjective, where power is basically, all consolidated in one area and is pretty absolute, and everybody's afraid to say anything to the leader of this place, because who knows what he might blow up. But in this case, instead of just firing you or ruining your career or calling you names on social media, he literally kills you. We see him at one point. He was it the Deep that goes in to see him, and he's got the social media coordinator for his office has basically got his head sawed in half and lying on the table. So we're in a really dark version of the boys' world, darker than it's ever been, darker than when Vought was just doing things very cynically. Now it's very out in the open, and so basically we find out very quickly that as we saw at the end of last season, Huey and Mother's Milk and Frenchie are all imprisoned in the Vought camps, where they all have to wear Homelander shirts with American flags on them. And it basically comes out that they're going to be executed, and it's all, of course, a plan to draw out Starlighter and or her forces. And we end up with this sort of dramatic break-in. They're going to try and get in there. Of course, Butcher's back, gets Starlighter, gets Kimiko. They end up busting in there, and we end up basically seeing this huge kind of showdown fight there between them and Homelander, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty grim. Huey is moments away from being killed when A-Train comes in and rescues him. And then we end up with sort of the infamous Superman versus Flash race as Homelander and A-Train, sort of play hide and seek for a while. And finally, in order to save a life, in order to do the right thing, the opposite thing of what he did in the first episode of this series, which is just run right through somebody, which is how Huey ends up getting radicalized and joining the boys. He sees somebody and goes around them, wipes out, hurts himself, gets caught by Homelander, and then ultimately killed, right? And then episode 2 picks up with, pretty much the funeral that they're throwing, honoring A-Train, which is pretty weird. And then, the team is basically back together, and they're trying to figure out, like, okay, so we think we've got this new formula for this virus that can kill soups. We need to figure out how we're going to test this and know whether or not there are, negative side effects and everything else. And so they decide they're going to target Teenage Kicks, which is this sort of Teen Titans-esque kind of young, up-and-coming stars super team. And they end up going to their headquarters thinking they can get this one guy, and then they realize that they've bitten off more than they can chew when they find out that he's now 30,000 pounds of rock in the basement and ejaculates lava.
Yeah, that was crazy.
that was pretty weird. It was pretty weird. And then we end up with, the resurrection of Soldier Boy, of course, who, we saw hadn't been seen in 2 seasons, had been basically put back into cryo sleep, and Homelander wakes him up and says, hey, we need you for this job. So he's the one, of course, who ends up going on this mission and having this big sort of showdown with the team as they're trying to use this deadly virus, which ends up with this big fight at this place where they actually release it, and it ends up killing a couple of them, right? But not. Well, they think that it kills Jetstreak, who's the guy who can fly. It kills Rock Hard, who is the Rock character, and it seems to kill Soldier Boy. But then at the end of the episode, we see him in a body bag get up and come back up to life. So that is an interesting wrinkle.
And that is the connection I foreshadowed earlier of like Invincible and, Conquest seemingly dead, and Nolan even made like a little grave for him that Oliver didn't like. And then the post-credit scene is they zoom in and dun dun dun, and then nothing happens. Like, oh, maybe he is dead. I thought for sure, given what they did, that he would come back, just like Soldier Boy came back here.
Yeah, yeah. And shout out to this episode was very clearly filmed in the suburbs of Mississauga. It looked exactly like the neighborhoods that I used to live in, and what was her name? The I can't even. I should have written it down. The Crow girl that shows up, who was one of the. Oh, here she is, Countess Crow. Was the sort of, somewhat innocent person from the Teenage Kicks who Mother's Milk takes pity on. That was Matre Ramakrishnan, who is, she was a star of a Netflix series called Never Have I Ever, which was quite good. And she's also from Mississauga, and I thought she was great. And I also love the gag that she had a flock or a murder of crows. And the last two survivors are Russell and Cameron.
Yeah, that was a good. That was a good choice
gag.
there.
It's a good gag, but yeah, I mean, again,
why is that Russell and why is Russell and Cameron a good gag?
Well, they're crows.
It's their last name.
Russell Crowe, Cameron Crowe.
Cameron Crowe.
Oh, Cameron Crowe. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Good gag. Anyway, I love Matre. She's one of the jewels of Mississauga, and was really happy to see her. Even for a small part, it was really nice to see her pop back up. So shout out to her. Yeah, I mean, two pretty crazy episodes, and no sparing on the death and dismemberment. We figured, obviously, 8 episodes to land this plane. The Boys has never been shy about killing characters and doing very dramatic things. First episode back, A-Train is dead. Strangely, Love Sausage, for those of you who remember, Love Sausage also dies in the first episode here. In theory, we also see Soldier Boy quote unquote die, but he's clearly not. And the other weird thing that we didn't talk about is the reveal that Ashley has another Ashley living on the back of her head, like Voldemort.
Right.
That was weird. That was very weird.
Didn't we see that in the end of the last season when she takes off her wig?
We saw that she was ripping her hair out, so we knew that she was basically like not really her own hair, but I don't think we established what was going on there until we heard this voice. I thought it was like supposed to be a voice in her head. Did not realize it was actually just a muffled voice from underneath her wig.
Professor Quirrell, Voldemort. That Tim
exactly.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think she was a soup in the beginning, in the first bunch of seasons, right?
She wasn't. She wasn't. That came later.
Okay, with the injection of V, I guess, right?
Yep. Yeah. But and maybe the biggest development in these 2 first episodes is Kimiko can talk, and she sounds like TikTok.
Yeah.
And also, she's really, really horny for Frenchie.
Damp and tingly, right?
Damp and tingly. Yikes.
That is an internet meme that lives forever now. It's going to be studied by aliens.
No, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect. I figured it was going to be a banger of a season, just given that they've really built, and this is obviously the crescendo of 5 seasons of this show. But they really came just roaring out of the gates with 2 real banger episodes. Really, like, a lot happening. They're not like wasting time with superficial stuff or superfluous stuff. It's just like, let's go. We're telling a huge, big, action, funny. Like, this is, if The Boys is going out, I want it to go out like this, right? What'd you think, Tim? What were your impressions the first 2?
Well, I mean, really enjoyed it. Did you guys talk about how the lava was made?
Yes. Yes, we did.
No, it was entertaining and entertaining, kind of creepy, and just watching the destruction of Homelander, as he self-implodes. But it's such a fictitious stretch. I don't know, like, I can't think of any real analogy or real life analogy that this fits into, right? So
yeah, Jaime mentioned that off the top that it's pretty hard not to see the parallels between what's happening in the real world and here. And I saw actually a quick interview with the show creator. And he was basically saying, like, I kind of didn't want to. It's Eric Kripke is the sort of showrunner creator of this. he basically said, like, I kind of didn't want this show to end because I still have a lot of things I want to say about the world we're living in right now. And he's like, I kind of got to the end of this and was like, but the world's still a mess and I have stuff I want to say. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, you know, we've got, you know, so this is the first 2 episodes. It's an 8-episode season. We've got 6 more episodes to go. We know that we're going to get a bunch of guest stars. We know we're going to get some of the people from Gen V are going to be coming over. I mean, it seems like we're headed towards sort of all-out war between the different sides. And, you know, obviously there's lots of crazy fun to still come. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, they didn't mess about when it comes to this one. They really came roaring out of the gates.
Yeah. I like the way they kind of spun the and using the. I mean, I don't know where they like. Again, this would have been filmed in advance of what's happened in the last 18 months, right?
Yeah.
So how did they get what you didn't see what you thought you saw meme? You know, like or trope, right? Because they you know, Annie reveals the airline movie their video with Homelander, right? And then they spin it like, oh, that was all AI, it was all fake, it was all, you know, you didn't see what you thought you saw kind of thing, right? So kind of like takes the wind right out of any sails, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a lot of, you know, we didn't really even get into the sort of the complex dynamics. Again, Butcher's back. He's got superpowers and a hell of a lot of cancer. That scene with his dad in the first one was pretty dark. You know, we've obviously got Huey and Starlighter reunited. You know, she's carrying around a lot of baggage that she has to deal with. You know, Kimiko and Frenchie back together. You know, like there's a lot of stuff going on. I would just like to revise. I have a list of ways that I'd prefer not to die. Getting beaten to death by an 8-foot penis is really high on the list now. Really would prefer not to be absolutely murdered by somebody with a penis that drags on the ground behind him. Yeah. Again, crazy stuff and so much to come. And again, this show, it's crazy because it is so over the top and it's so just absolutely zany and dark and twisted. But there is this heart to it. Like these characters love each other. There's complex relationships. There's tremendous performances. You can get lost in the you know, the 8-inch penis of it all, or you can realize that there's a lot going on in the show and that Eric Kripke and the whole team around this show have a lot to say, and they're saying it really well.
Yeah, did you talk about the worm at all?
No, we didn't talk about the worm. We just talked about the break-in, but not the character. Yeah.
Yeah, the worm was a bit over the top, especially when he says to Kimiko, "You better stand back," and she doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the angle. He said, "Can I use this in one of my stories?" You know, like.
Well, and there's definitely something there. Obviously, there's an in-joke for the writing room of AI basically taking over the writing and stuff like that. But I also really love the scene where they're in the prison camp and the voice comes over the intercom and says, "Tonight's movie will be Dawn of the Seven. Tomorrow night's movie will be Dawn of the Seven." Like, you're gonna watch this till your brains explode. And
they're all wearing Homelander shirts, right?
Obviously this is a comedically inspired version of it, but you know, again, through the prism, it's definitely a very, very astute observation of some of the current realities of the world, and again, told with a lot of fun and flair, but also was a message to this of how dark things can get if you don't put checks on power.
Well, and same thing. I mean, we didn't talk about it in Daredevil, but they have that whole secret police corps, you know, just guys with bad attitudes hired and put in bulletproof vests, you know, like.
Yep, that seems pretty time appropriate, doesn't it?
Yeah, scarily so, right?
I'm going to ask you this one, Tim, because I don't know if Jaime will have the same frame of reference, but did you not think that the guy who's the leader of that like crew of crooked cops in Daredevil, to me, he looks exactly like Eric Lindros? Every time
he does have that sort of.
He's got the like kind of square jaw, square head kind of vibe that Eric Lindros did, and every time I see him, I'm like, oh god, here it goes. Eric Lindros is back. Like I can't unsee it once I've seen it. I hope you enjoy that because now it'll be in your head too.
Yeah, I guess.
I didn't know the reference, but with the magic of the Googles, I looked him up, and as a younger man, on this ESPN page, I'm like, yep, I see it. It's definitely the eyebrows right there that makes it happen.
Yeah, thick eyebrows. And again, he's got kind of a square, the way his hair's cut, the sort of similar kind of, as soon as I saw him, I'm like, wow, that's kind of uncanny. And now I can't unsee it, so.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up by moving on to our watch list, and I mean, you're up first.
Yeah, mine is a documentary on Netflix called Louis Theroux Inside the Manosphere. So Louis Theroux has done a bunch of documentaries kind of like this on various topics, talking to various people. In this case, he goes and talks to a lot of these bloggers, podcasters, YouTubers, social media influencers that are in the quote-unquote manosphere. So if you've seen the incel movement, if you've seen the rise of misogyny and being sigma or betas and all of this like really weird tied up in toxic masculinity and how that has impacted at least American politics. I'm not sure if it's impacted Canadian. It was pretty fascinating as a watch to see what these guys are really like and how the grift evolves. So it's pretty easy breezy. It's, not going to make you feel good, but it goes down pretty easy in terms of a watch. So that was my recommendation here.
It's funny. Like I grew up in the whole era of the sort of modern day feminism, which started in the 70s with the burning of the bras and, God forbid, women getting the right to vote, things like that. But I remember one of the things that people would say was that the pendulum's going to swing, right? And the idea was that it would swing towards acceptance of women in society and politics and things like that, right? But it certainly has swung back hard, right, with our current atmosphere in politicians and these Proud Boys and people like incels and things like that. It's just amazing how much misogyny has come back, with even more strength than it had before, right?
Tragically so.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
on that happy note,
I was going to say I'll try and lighten up from there and say I went with my son to go see Project Hail Mary. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I agree with a lot of the sentiments that Tim had mentioned when he talked about it on our previous episode. Fun, just thoroughly entertaining. As I said to my son in the moment, it's so same feeling I had about The Martian. It's so nice to see a movie where the solution isn't a gun. And it's nice to see somebody who has to, use logic and reason and science and math as opposed to punching and yelling and kicking and screaming. I don't know if I loved it as much as The Martian. Maybe just a little bit different. But I think it's terrific. I think, there's definitely I hope it, obviously you never know what the year is going to bring in movies, but I think it'll probably get some consideration for some awards. The visual effects were amazing. The puppetry was amazing. I thought Gosling was very charming and funny. And I think I'm glad I made the effort to go see that one in the theater and really enjoyed that. Jaime, have you had a chance to see this yet?
Yeah, I actually did see this. I was going to make it my pick until I noticed you had this. I said, oh, okay, I will chime in and say that I also enjoyed this movie. If people are wondering, I went with my mom to see this one as back home visiting, and she was skeptical to go to this one because the TV marketing didn't entice her, but she did actually love the movie. And we were talking about it afterwards and said, part of the marketing issue here is it probably needs to be marketed less like a Gravity or even a Martian, as you just described there, and probably more like an E.T. or like a Flight of the Navigator, if we go back to that 80s movie. It's very heavily dependent, very similar to Pluribus. It's very heavily dependent on, do you believe that Ryan Gosling can carry the load here as the main person talking most of the time, and then you accept his companions, right? Like Sosha and stuff, right? Like that's going to be, I think, the key difference for like whether people will enjoy it or not. And we loved it. It's a long movie. It's like 2.5 hour plus, maybe 2:45.
Yeah, it is.
But it goes pretty easy breezy because it is very charming, right? It's It's got some serious stuff to it, and it is told in an interesting way where there's flashbacks, so you don't get a linear progression of the story. And it's, I don't know, E.T. and Flight of the Navigator, it feels pretty, it's not doom and gloom, it's not horror, it's not pew pew pew, like you mentioned. It's a nice one. Pretty, A++ on this one for me.
Yeah, I agree.
I still got to say, I think they could have done the marketing, the trailer completely. Like, they had so much material to work with. I really wish they hadn't spoiled it by putting Rocky in the trailer, right?
Or at least make it a little more obtuse. You know, I don't. Tim, you're old enough to maybe also remember this, but do you remember back in the 80s when E.T. came out? The marketing never showed E.T. in the commercials on TV or on the trailers in the movie theater. They showed you his hand with his finger glowing. They showed you him like the scene where he's running, where you sort of see him from behind, but you don't see it. You get these glimpses and hints, but you don't really get the full picture until you go see the movie. I mean, I think now that the cat's out of the bag, and, obviously people have seen the movie or are aware of it through the marketing. Like, the best part of the book was when, Rylan wakes up in space and he's like, what the heck's happening here? And then it's flashing back and forth.
Yeah, what's going on?
It's not until many chapters in that he has this blip show up on his screen and is like, what the heck is this? And then the holy moly of like, oh, I'm not the only scientist who's here. Something else is happening. And that was what made the book for me, was like, it wasn't just the Martian where he's struck by himself. It was about the two of them and them building this relationship and this respect and this, this thing together. You're right. The marketing could have done a lot, I think, better by being a little more obtuse. I feel like it's a kind of a damning insight on our society that they kind of had to be like, look at the cute alien. It's going to be on the movie screen. Go see the cute alien.
It's going to be on the popcorn bucket. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but there was the whole buddy thing, like the actor from The Bear, who the dessert maker from The Bear, who plays his sort of sidekick, mm-hmm. the secret. I mean, there was that whole sort of like, let's go to Home Depot and grab some tape, and
we're gonna do some science.
And they kind of they both clap hands at the same time once they realize they need to get on with it, right, sort of thing. And I mean, they could have played on. I mean, the whole like, I put the knot in astronaut and all that kind of stuff. They could have just lent into that. There's a crisis, something has to get solved. He's the unlikely hero kind of thing, because there is a sort of the waking up on the suspended animation and who am I, why am I here, right, kind of thing. That was, to me, I remember reading that in the book at the time, going, it's kind of a weird way to start a book, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. I never would have thought they would make it into a movie, like, just because of the way the book was written. I didn't think that would work. But then they did a lot of things. I've watched a ton of interviews on this particular movie, having seen it twice myself, right? There's a lot of things that they, in the production of the movie, put in, like the Harry Styles song was not in the book, and it was just something that Ryan Gosling came up with during the making of the movie. He had this idea, and the actress who did the singing, she wasn't even going to do it, right? And she said, this is the only song I'll sing, right? And then thankfully Harry Styles gave them the rights to the song, because they couldn't have afforded it, right? But and it turned out to be, again, it's that's the soundtrack of this movie for a lot of people, right? And that's, again, it's not in the book, right? But yeah, I think they could have worked a little harder to it's kind of like, oh, we put all this money into this little puppet thing, we gotta have it in the trailer nonsense. To be honest with you, like, the way I saw E.T. when it came out was, my friend, who was like a former roommate of mine, he told me and then wife, you should see this movie, right? And let's go see it. And he basically dragged the two of us along, and we had kids at the time, but we didn't bring them to see the movie because we wanted to see it before we showed it to the kids, right? For the kid anyway, at that one point. But, and it was complete surprise, because we walked in not knowing anything about the movie, right? So for me, that was a great way to see E.T., right? Because, I mean, E.T.'s in the extraterrestrial is in E.T. more than Rocky is in this movie, right? They could have even just had the, oh my God, there's something out there kind of thing show up. And what is it, and left that there. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they felt if they made it sound too much like a sci-fi movie, half of the people wouldn't even show up. But in retrospect, it did so well in pre-screenings and things like that it just got a buzz of its own, and that's why to this day it's still sold out. Right? I don't know what the box office is doing now, but every time I go to look and see if there's a ticket available, all the seats are taken. Right? So it's kind of like the Jaws or the Godfather of our time, right?
Well, and they picked a good time too. I mean, other than the Mario movie that just came out, it's a little quiet still in the movie theater, so it was a good time for them to have that. Again, it's a plus and a minus. It's a good window for a movie that doesn't have that IP zhuzh to it. Although quickly Andy Weir's becoming his own IP, but it definitely feels like
the pressure's on him for sure. Yeah.
Well, and they still have Artemis that they can circle back to, but he's already said he's working on his fourth novel as well, and so I mean they can go backwards and forwards, but yeah, it definitely was a good timing for them because I think they pretty much got just an opportunity to camp out in the IMAX screens and just keep raking in the dough.
Yeah, for sure. So how do we know how? I mean, now that the Mario movie came out last week, right? How is it doing? How's the box office looking? Is it still the number one movie, or what's the story?
I think. Let me just double check. I think the Mario movie won the box office last week, which is not surprising considering it's just got that like kids to the movies, give them something to do, stop complaining kind of vibe to it. Yeah. I read the headline the other day
worldwide
that said that it.
According to Box Office Mojo, the Super Mario Galaxy movie is 231 domestic, 206 international, 437 million worldwide, off a budget of 110 million. So doing pretty good. You take that rule of three of triple up the budget. Has it made money? Yep, it has profited already, as far as we can tell.
Yeah. So listed in the IMDb app right now, it's got Hail Mary in first position, Mario in second position, and the drama in third position.
Yeah, that's the new Zendaya movie. So again, it's been out for a while now. Last weekend, Super Mario Galaxy movie made 131 at the domestic box office, which is North America. Project Hail Mary made 31, but it's been out for weeks, and it wasn't as obviously. That's 3 weeks after it came out. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to walk away with a whole bunch. It's already got, just domestically, it's already got $230 million. But strangely, Super Mario Galaxy has already made 231, so more in 1 week than Project Hail Mary made in 3. That's just the way these things go, right?
See, this is why I think it needed to be. It's not exactly like E.T. or the Flight of Navigator. I don't want people to get me wrong there, right? Although the alien is like a cute thing of like, man, they definitely got to have like a little alien you put on your desk or something. Super Mario Galaxy, like no adult is going by themselves by and large, right? You're taking a kid. So there's like a minimum of 2 people. And let's be honest, it's probably a family of 4, right? 2 adults, 2 kids. For a very popular, well-known property, which helps. Project Hail Mary, I think it's probably, people going on dates or something, right? Or just, 2 adults. You're probably not bringing the kids because it looks more like Gravity or maybe The Martian and less like, hey, it's kind of more E.T. like. I think that's where the marketing maybe could have helped it out, because Rotten Tomatoes for Project Hail Mary is 94% for the critics, 96% for the fans. Super Mario Galaxy movie, in comparison, is only 43% on the tomato meter for critics and 89% on the popcorn meter. So
yeah, I heard mostly negative reviews from what I read of the Super Mario Galaxy. A lot of people said it's kind of it's just a marketing. Like it just felt like it was doing all the greatest hits from the video games and being like, go play more Mario games, kids. Which is, I mean, you kind of, when we're into that kind of IP, you kind of have to expect that, but also it's disappointing when it's, shameless like that.
So I just opened up the local ticket, our equivalent of Fandango or whatever it is that you guys do in the States. But so I opened it up and I looked at Project Hail Mary. There's only one IMAX screening at the Scotiabank Theater, 9 p.m. And Friday and Saturday, there isn't a good seat left, right? And yet the Mario movie is also playing in IMAX, right? And there are plenty of seats available. and it's playing in multiple showings. So what does that tell you? So I think they're still, even though they've cut the Project Hail Mary down to one screening, at this one particular theater, because at one point they had 3 or 4 screenings a day kind of thing. But it's doing well. And my Amaze pin came in, so I missed I went to the 70 millimeter production a week before the movie released, and I did not get a pin because they were giving away the pins at the IMAXs, right? Because it was a cross promotion IMAX thing. And then when I went to see it in IMAX, it was the night before that they were giving out. I was there the night after they were giving out the pins, right? So that's how I found out about the pins. So I did manage to get one off of eBay, and there's a few around if you're interested. But yeah, and apparently the Canadian Capcom, when she was talking about the Artemis 2 trip at one point, she said, "Amaze, amaze, amaze."
She did. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Those Canadians, you can never give them a microphone.
I'm going to jump to my next thing, which is I finished reading the 3 Night of the Seven Kingdoms short stories. So the first one is the Hedge Knight, which of course is the story that we just saw in the first season of the HBO series Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And then I listened to the next 2 as an audiobook, The Sworn Sword and The Mystery Knight, which will theoretically be the next 2 seasons of this series. They're fun, easy, pretty brief stories. They're novellas, so they're not even like, and George can write. Damn, I read those Game of Thrones books and they were monsters. These are very, very light, very focused, just like the series. Humor, and just really interesting little sort of quiet side stories set in the realm of fire and blood and yeah, it was. They're good. I really enjoyed them. I would recommend them if you're looking for something solid to read. They're pretty easy to follow along, and it does help if you've watched the Game of Thrones series or you've read any of the other books. There is obviously family names and locations and stuff that will help orient you, but they're just really nice little easy stories to get into. I will say I got to the end of the 3 novellas, and George has said that he could see doing as many as 12, but as few as 6 of these. I am 100% convinced there are no way that he's going to have these done by the time they catch up to the real thing. I think in 3 years we're going to be in the same boat that we were with mid-run Game of Thrones, where they're going to be like, well, George kind of gave us some plot points, but also we're kind of making it up as we go. I'm a little concerned about that now that I've gotten here, especially now that they've committed to trying to do a series of this every year. But yeah, if you're a fan of this stuff, if you enjoyed the first run and want to get a little more depth, these are really great, and I think you will enjoy yourself. If you enjoyed the series, you'll enjoy these other stories. And obviously there'll be spoilers for the show that's coming up ahead, but none of it is like, oh my god, spoilers. It's not like, and that turned out to be this major thing. It's all very off to the side, pretty self-contained. There's some scope and scale, but really it's just about these 2 friends on their adventures. And yeah, I think if you like the series, you'll really like the books.
So is this which book is this in the series you're talking about?
So there are 3 Dunk and Egg novellas that have been, you can get them individually or you can get them as a collection of the first 3. So A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is sort of the overarching title, and then The Hedge Knight, The Sworn Sword, and The Mystery Knight are the 3 different novellas.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the second and third one currently.
Yeah, I think I talked about the first one when we talked about the series, but that one again there's some different small changes and stuff like that, but it's pretty faithful adaptation. So again, if you don't want to get spoiled for upcoming seasons of the series, then you might want to hold off. But if you really enjoyed it and want to learn more, it's one of the more enjoyable, I'll be honest, George R. R. Martin experiences. Sometimes I find his stuff to be overwritten, but this, yeah, really good.
Cool. All right. Well, for me, I'm watching a bunch of shows, but the ones I want to talk about that are related to what we generally circle, the stories we kind of follow, is been watching Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2. This is the Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell vehicle, where they play so they play the same character at different ages. There's some time travel-y sort of stuff that's happening in this second season, which are related to this parallel dimension that they discover. And I mean, it's okay. I mean, it started out kind of weak compared to the first season. First season was sort of a whole bunch of odd pieces that had to get connected together. They've kind of sort of gone a little bit further with the second story, or the second season, I should say. It's not bad, but I'm holding judgment on whether it's successful as the first season was. Lots of kaiju if you're into that, big monsters stomping on buildings, things like that. Godzilla does make an appearance in the latest episode, which last week's episode that is. But I'm also watching For All Mankind because it's interesting and I'm interested in space. I'm still pissed off at the title, but and the gist of it. But it's the alternate telling of what would have happened if the Russians got to the moon before the Americans, kind of thing. Which is kind of interesting. I heard a Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the Artemis mission, and the reason why the U.S. is going back to the moon is because other countries are interested in the moon and the resources there, which is why the Americans want to try and get there first again. But anyway, I digress. So For All Mankind, if you've been following along, we're now on Mars. There's now a settlement on Mars. Last season, they captured an asteroid, and they're mining the asteroid for resources. So there's a whole... So now it's like life, like people are living and working on Mars who are like, some of them are get there illegally. They're called craters. They come up in the supply crates. They hide inside them and somehow survive the trip, the 2-year trip or whatever, and get to Mars. And they're illegals kind of thing. And there's a whole subculture of that. And so there's a worker versus, NASA and whatever. And there's a sort of an Elon Musk character who's investing in a lot of the things up there and the science. He's part of the reason why they got to Mars and why they got to the moon in the first place. But what's interesting this season is, so Joel Kinnaman is the star, and I believe he's Danish, because he was originally on a show called The Killing, which was redone here in North America as The Killing. Surprise, surprise. They just changed in that one, it was a First Nations girl who was kidnapped, and he plays a cop who has to go and sort of figure out, what happened to her, and, it opens up a whole can of worms. But his partner in that TV series, in the original Danish series and the reproduced version of the Americans version of The Killing, is Muriel Enos, and she has turned up in For All Mankind as a sort of security / cop person and so there's sort of a whodunit kind of mystery that happens in the first episode, and so now she's trying to figure it out. And at this point in time, Joel Kinnaman, he was an astronaut in the first series, so now he's well into his 60s or 70s, and he's a real grumpy old guy yelling at clouds and stuff like that, right? But do they yell at clouds on Mars? I don't know, but so it's interesting. Again, I don't know if it's really necessary to watch 5 seasons of this show, but because every season is a new sort of retelling of history, right? I think Dr. Dre and John Lennon put out an album recently in this telling of the story. And I think trying to remember where it is in time. I think they're in the early 2000s, if not late 90s, sort of thing. Because obviously, there's like Al Gore was president for a while and stuff like that, right? But so they kind of play around with the North Korea, Russia, and America are the sort of 3 powers that are involved in this Martian project kind of thing, right? So yeah, so it's interesting. See where it goes. But I just thought it was funny that the 2 actors from The Killing are now back making a killing in this one. Yeah. But that's it. So I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jonathan, people want to get in touch with you. Where will they find you?
Oh, started our Slack channel. That's the most fun place we hang out. If you can't find me there, Instagram, I'm at GPK News, or I'm at JPK.
Hey. Okay. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, where they find you?
I'm on Instagram as at Dev with a Hair.
All right. And as I say every week, my name is Timitra, Timmitra. You can find me with that handle on Blueski, Mastodoniski, Threadski, and Iski, and Substackski. So until next time, see you in the future.
Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. If you have feedback or questions, you can get in touch with us on the website. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Apparently, there's supposed to be an online auction on April 10th, which by my calculations is tomorrow, of the props and set pieces from the Starfleet Academy series, since they have struck the sets and are not making any more. That is how much they are not making anymore. They are selling off bits of stuff from the set and costumes now.
Oh,
I
interesting.
just read that on one of the blogs that I'm on.
Wow. So does that mean it's the main production is in the can and they're just in post-production now?
Yeah, it sounds like they aren't filming anything anymore. Let's see if I can find a link to that.
What are we talking about?
There's on one of the blogs that I'm on. Apparently, they have struck the sets and are selling off props and costumes from Starfleet Academy at an online auction in the Toronto area. So I'm just looking to see if I can find the details.
What? So they've finished filming season 2?
Yeah, apparently they are not doing any more filming of anything. They are post-production on that and on and Strange New Worlds, and they are done. Now, that being said, I can find no link to said auction, so take it with a grain of salt. It's up on one of the groups that I'm in. Which one is it? This is Star Trek fans. Star Trek fans on social media. Yeah, there's a picture of them like breaking down the atrium set, and then there's another link to a local online auction is scheduled for Friday, April 10th, featuring props and set pieces from the Toronto production of Starfleet Academy. But I do not see a link. So again, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I'm just reading on Screen Rant that a crew member from the show reports that teams are already de-rigging the studios and used for the latest series.
Yeah, I guess they basically have given up the space. They're not gonna. They're taking down the atrium, so there is no more set, and they're gonna recycle/sell it all. So if you were hoping for a season 3, it's not happening. It's just not.
They could do an animated series.
They could. That is apparently a way you can move these things forward.
Well, we know how Paramount is these days, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely don't think that they're going to not make any more Star Trek ever. I think they will just have to evaluate how they're going to do it. And yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of waiting for the announcement that they're going to make whatever they decide to call it, Star Trek Legacy, Star Trek Season 1, Part 2, whatever they decide to call the ongoing adventures of the Enterprise after Strange New Worlds. I think they want to wait until at least the end of Strange New Worlds Season 4, which is coming later this year, before they announce that. So,
I see something on that nameless social networking site.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, it says coming this Friday, an auction. That person doesn't speak favorably of the show anyway, so
People suck.
that's like his opinion, man.
Yeah, take that.
Interesting. I wonder why. Do you think it's ratings or just?
I think it's cost plus ratings plus. I think the cost is the biggest thing, just because they know that they want to basically scale things down with this merger and everything, and they basically want to come in with a clean slate. They don't want to basically have as many productions on the books. They want to be able to say, we decide what we spend money on, not what you were already spending money on, right?
Oh, I see. The new from now on, this cup will be kept here.
Yeah, pretty much. It's the whole like, we love Star Trek. We're going to tell our own Star Trek. They don't want to do anything. I mean, all things being equal, in the end, we're going to have had 5 seasons of Discovery, 5 seasons of Strange New Worlds, 5 seasons of Lower Decks, and 3 seasons of Picard and 2 seasons of Academy in this last 10-year stretch. I got nothing to complain about. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, that's the most robust production of Star Trek content since the 90s. So I think we should just be grateful for what we got and hope that there's more coming, and that there are people who are equally passionate about Trek and the spirit of Gene Roddenberry's content, that they want to continue telling good stories, and that the IP is so valuable that they'll just keep doing that. That's the dream.
Yeah, I occasionally see auction stuff on my Facebook, but I just ignore it usually.
Yeah, I know there's a few places. There was a place in Mississauga that used to occasionally auction props and set stuff from different Handmaid's Tale and Umbrella Academy and stuff like that would pop up from time to time.
Yeah. Yes, Cherie Bob. Jaime's obviously very sad. He's very quiet.
I'm here.
No sports for you guys to talk about?
I don't know. What do we?
How's the Seattle teams doing? Because Toronto teams aren't doing very good.
Our basketball team's about to make the playoffs, so that's a thing.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. The baseball
Mariners
team is
sitting in the cellar.
Yeah, the Blue Jays came out hot as a pistol and then went into the tank and lost 6 games in a row. So they're still hanging in there, but not what you want to see coming off a great season last year.
Mm-hmm.
How what's the vibe in your new adopted city there, Jaime, of the potential return of the Sonics?
It's one of those tentative things where it seems like it makes sense. Like, obviously, mathematically, bags of money wise, you would do Seattle and Las Vegas for the expansion. But I feel like it's we've been hurt so many times before that we're not ready to love again, until they actually sign on the dotted line.
Yeah. I was a casual Sonics fan before the Raptors came along. I enjoyed some of their players over the years, and obviously they have a long and storied history in the NBA. So I was really kind of sad when the team got hijacked, if you'll pardon the pun, to go to Oklahoma City, and I think it would be justice for them to get their team back. But also, I'm not sure how the math works out, because they're talking about like the expansion fee being like $8 billion for a franchise. It's awful hard to find somebody, even with partners, who's got $8 billion to throw around. And particularly, it's hard to find somebody who isn't a jackass. So I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating how these teams have gotten so crazy lucrative. I mean, you look at what Mark Cuban paid. I don't know. It's like $145 million or something like that for the Dallas Mavericks back in the late 90s, early 2000s, probably. And it feels quaint. Like, oh, really? That's it? I guess I'll take 5 of them. Put them in their stocking stuffers now.
Yeah. Yeah, really. We were talking about the moon earlier in the Artemis mission, and I don't know if you two caught this the other day. Decide whether or not you want to keep this in the after show, Tim, but did you see the clip of when the US president called them on the when they were in their capsule, and he called and none of them would talk to him?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wondered about that.
They called, and he was
going through a tunnel.
Yeah,
can't hear you.
Yeah, like, oh, dark side of the moon, can't talk now. They literally, this guy was just like yammering at them, and they were all like spinning the microphone in 0 G's, and just like nobody said anything. And then eventually he left. And then the next day I saw that they had a conversation with Mark Carney, our prime minister. And all of them were like giggling and laughing and having a good time. I was like, oh, damn, he's not going to like that. Mm-hmm. That bit made me laugh. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of the images that they captured from their flyby? They are
Yeah, I've seen some.
spectacular.
Yeah, amazing.
They're so cool.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, I've always been a space nerd. I assume both of you have. I mean, Tim, I know you have, but like this stuff is just like, yeah, space nerd heaven. Like some of these, the picture of the flyby on the dark side is very cool. The picture they took when they were leaving Earth too, of the Earth lit by moonlight was also really, really cool. And some of these close-ups that they were able to get, like just the different colors, the different textures, the shapes, and I mean, it's just incredible. Like I was really excited for it, and everything more I see, I get more excited for it. Now we just need them to land safely.
Yeah, the broadcast of the rocket launch was. I hope it was better on the Vision Pro, Tim, because when I was watching on like CBS, I was like, man, this is not good. They completely missed tracking the rocket. I was like, what's going on? Are they worried about it exploding like the Challenger? Like what?
Yeah.
Why is it not following it exactly?
Yeah. Did you see there was one video of an airplane that was flying in the area, a commercial flight? And
and they saw the launch.
You can see the launch, and even the pilot comes on and is like, everyone needs to go to the left side of the plane right now. You'll never see this. He's like, I've flown through this area for like 20 years as a pilot, and I've never seen one. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, yeah, that was pretty impressive. And can you imagine being on like a passenger flight and just seeing like a space rocket fly past you? Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm going to pack it in because I have to drive back to Fredericton for the 27th time in the last week.
Really?
Yes. I was in Fredericton on Tuesday. I was in Fredericton on Wednesday. I was supposed to be there today, and then I got a reprieve at the last minute, thank goodness. And then I have to go back again tomorrow.
Didn't you go to Moncton on Wednesday?
That was Monday night. And then, on Tuesday morning, I did a shoot there and then drove to Fredericton in the afternoon, did another shoot there. Now I need to assemble all this footage into something coherent. So,
lucky you.
Yep.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Talk to you next week, guys.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.